Welcome to the Beau Show, the home of faith, family, and freedom. I'm in our nation's capital right now, and clearly there is still some uncertainty about the future direction of our country, as election results still hang in the balance, which is unacceptable on so many different levels. South American countries tally their votes at about 10 times the pace of Arizona and Nevada. Now perhaps you understand why states need to modernize their election laws. This can't keep happening. But a guy that I want to focus on today is singer Kid Rock, who is a straight shooter and plain speaker. Lately, he's been a little more vocal about his opinions. But what sets him apart is that he does not spout the typical scripted groupthink of most entertainers. He's unashamed in his support of Donald Trump, who, like himself, is quite the plain speaker. Not very politically correct. Here's kind of his personal philosophy.
You're just like, there's no comparison.
Yeah.
And Trump, yeah, he speaks off the cuff. I understand what it's like. Sometimes you get it wrong.
Yeah.
You know, this, that, and the other. But I would way rather hear somebody come from here and get it wrong once in a while than see this contrived. Pretty much every politician until he came along at some level, everything was scripted. I mean, I've stood next to him in the White House and right next to him with the prepared notes and watch him read like one sentence and then just, let's go. And you're like, this is awesome. Oh, I've had managers that, my old manager Punch, I love dearly. He told me flat out when he started to manage. He goes, just so you know, he goes, everything you've done to this point in your career to get where you're at, I would have told you no.
Well, what does that tell you?
I just got to go with my heart. And I've just gone by my heart and the seat of my pants, tried to be a good person, be educated if I'm going to speak on some things. Sometimes not so much, but whatever. Just kind of call it like I see it.
Recently, Oprah said this.
But I will tell y'all this, if I lived in Pennsylvania, I would have already cast my vote for John Fetterman for many reasons.
So in response, Kid Rock said this about Oprah Winfrey in a tweet. Quote, Oprah helped Dr. Oz with his career. I assume because she vetted him and found him to be a wonderful person. Now she is against him. Oprah is a fraud. Unquote. So the point that Kid Rock was making just before these midterms is that Oprah helped launch Dr. Oz's TV career by having him on as a medical expert. Of course, Oz went on to have the Dr. Oz show and then recently ran for U.S. Senate in Pennsylvania. However, Oz lost to Lieutenant Governor and stroke victim John Fetterman. Oprah threw her celebrity behind Fetterman, falling in lockstep with her previous support of other Democrats, especially the political candidacy of Barack Obama. Now, I didn't know that Dr. Oz might be a Republican, nor did I expect him to run for public office. But in a race against someone who can't form a complete sentence, you wouldn't think it would be too hard. As Kid Rock points out, Oprah's endorsement of Fetterman goes against her previous professional support of Dr. Oz, but it also goes against logic. It shows Oprah to be far more ideological than logical. The only reason someone could support Fetterman would be for sheer partisan reasons, because no one in their right mind would trust Fetterman to make any decision for them. I think most sane people realize that John Fetterman is not fit to lead. And while Dr. Oz was a first-time candidate with no political experience, it shouldn't take a big campaign to figure out whom you'd rather represent your state. Then again, Democrats let Joe Biden run and become president when clearly his mental state is noticeably in decline. So does it say more about Democrats that they elected a mentally impaired person, or more about Republicans that they couldn't defeat a mentally impaired person? When Kid Rock calls Oprah a fraud, it's more than just a simple statement. Fetterman said he was completely against fracking and then somehow lied about that in the debate. If Oprah is supposed to vet people that she supports, she is supporting a liar. Do you remember when Oprah had on author James Fry, who wrote A Million Little Pieces, which was part of Oprah's book club? It turns out that part of that memoir was fiction, and she had him back on to talk about it. So she said this, quote, and so to anyone who has challenged me on this issue of truth, you are absolutely right. This whole upsetting controversy has left me with a lot of questions for James Fry, unquote. So what's interesting is that some did challenge her over a book, not over a political candidate who has lied and who can't form a sentence. Oprah closed her show with the following, quote, I read this quote in the New York Times from Michiko Kakutani, who said it best, I think. It's why I really wanted to do this show. She says this is not about truth in labeling, a case about truth in labeling or the misrepresentation of one author. That it is a case about how much value contemporary culture places on the very idea of truth. And I believe that the truth matters, unquote. Well, That's all well and good, Oprah, and it's catchy for TV. But what is Oprah really all about? Is she really a pursuer of the truth? I mean, she can see that Fetterman lied, but that he's also inept and incapable. Why would someone of her stature, such a proclaimed pursuer of the truth, support Fetterman? It doesn't follow logic. Don't forget that Kid Rock got on stage in 2019 at his own Nashville bar and went on a tirade against Oprah and Joy Behar. There was reason behind that, though. He said on his Facebook page at the time that his people tried to get him to go on Oprah's show, and that her producers wanted him to come up with 5 reasons he loved Oprah and her show. And he said, screw it, so he refused. In the same post, he talks about how he loves Trump and that he will catch media flack for that. But his tour numbers don't lie. He says, sure, he drinks too much sometimes, but he says that a drunk man's words are a sober man's thoughts. But here's why Oprah's endorsement of Fetterman is not just fraudulent, but detrimental. She is the world's wealthiest black woman. And sure, she gives to some charities and gave away some cars on her show, but by and large, she does not help her own race of people in her support of the politicians of her choosing. As Roger Simon of the Epoch Times points out, crime in Pennsylvania, especially Philadelphia, spiked enormously. The vast majority of homicides happened in black communities. The types of leaders who have presided over these homicides are Democrats like John Fetterman, who campaigned his way to the lieutenant governor role by promising to release prisoners. Fetterman used the movie The Shawshank Redemption as inspiration. I love that movie. But why would you make it a priority to release prisoners at a time when crime and homicide are rising? It just seems counterintuitive. This is always the celebrity blind spot. It's like they have all signed up to this idea that the Democratic Party helps everyone, but they don't. They certainly don't help the downtrodden. As Tulsi Gabbard said recently, the Democrat Party has become the party of elitists. It's a social club. It's the high society, the movie stars, the big tech guys. It has become a collective of the haves rather than the have-nots. And just as importantly, a party of hot air. So when Kid Rock calls this out, he's noting a particular hypocrisy and ideological elitism in Oprah and others like her. There's a certain lack of authenticity when they stump for people like this. Even Katie Tur over at MSNBC floated John Fetterman as a possible presidential contender. Watch this.
Fetterman as a nominee at some point for president. I know there's some variables, obviously. Just a few. But I just, what he did in the super red, deep red parts of Pennsylvania and the way that he ran ahead of Biden, as you were saying, ran ahead of Trump, I mean, it makes you wonder about his future.
Unbelievable.